Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Brian. Behind me is our 2008 VW GTI. I've had this car since it was new, so 14 years now. And it's getting up there in miles. It has, I think, 182,000 on it. And it developed a coolant leak and kind of a noise in the front end. I recently replaced the front drive axle, thinking it was going to solve the problem. And it went away for a while, but then it came back. There was some play in that axle, so it was definitely not good. Anyway, I think I've found the problem now. So in today's video, we're going to be replacing a coolant flange, which is leaking, or which I assume to be leaking. It may be a hose, but if I'm going to go in there, I'm going to replace the flange, and then we'll take a look at what it takes to replace the front strut bearings. I also recently replaced the hood strut. Because the older it got, the harder it was to keep it up. So that's been replaced. So I guess about 14 years on those too. We've had the low coolant light come on and have had to add coolant. The only place we've noticed where it's losing it is right down in there. So let me get this cover pulled off, as much access as we can get to be able to see what's going on down there. So to get this engine cover off, disconnect, I guess it's the airflow meter back here. Of course, the clip's long been broken off, so you don't need to worry about that. Two metal clips. And if you forget to hook any of this back up, the car's not going to run. This car, you need to pull off well, actually you don't. You do not need to pull the oil fill cap off. And the screws over here on the air intake are long gone too. So you just kind of pull on it a few times, and this also houses the air filter, and there are little rubber grommets in here that mount on pegs. They're all gone too. So it kind of just sits on there, and actually what happens is the rubber grommets pull out of the air box and get stuck on the pegs, but it doesn't seem to hurt anything. Anyway, coolant leak is down in there, and there's a flange and some hoses that all kind of come together right there. So my assumption is that the flange is jacked up, or we've got a hose leaking, or got a little bit of everything. So we got a new flange. We'll see what we can do to get that replaced. So that flange is buried under what I believe this is the high pressure fuel pump. Don't quote me exactly. That flange lives underneath there. There's the new one. It's an aftermarket Phoebe one. So that thing looks like it sits in there like that with 3 bolts. Kind of an O-ring connection. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show you much of that without just looking at my elbows. But first off, I'm going to get the belly pan off here, and we'll try to at least get that crack loose and see if we can recapture any of this coolant. I have the belly pan off. I have a pan under there to maybe catch something. So there's a wiring connector here that I'm sure you can't see. Looks like it goes to a temperature sensor in the end of the manifold. There are 3 bolts which appear to be T27s, and there's a wire loom right in front of all this mess. So let me see if I can get this out of the way, and I don't know how far it's going to come out of the way. Maybe none at all, because it looks like it goes down. Anyway, that may help a little bit. Or not at all. Let's see if we can get this connector unhooked. So you pull out on a little tab, and then in a car this old it breaks off. So now that's unhooked. That's easy enough. As I said, there are 3 connections. T27s. It's going to be all by feel. I'm going to go in there and see if I can get them out, pull this off, get the coolant all over the garage floor, and then we'll figure out how we can unhook all these hoses. There's one. I'm going to bet that's stainless. Well, no, it's not. So, looks like stainless. At least if you drop it, a magnet will likely pick it up. Let's see where the other one's going to be. The nice thing about having the new part with fasteners you can't see is you kind of guess where they're going to be. There's two. I'm sure this will be non-visible either, but in order to get to this last top bolt, there's a bracket. It looks like it holds the wire loom, maybe. It has a ground attached to it. It appears to be the same size Torx bolt. Let's see if that's the case. You can only see it with a mirror. At least it looks like it's just a bracket. Can't imagine that they would like put something such as this unaccessible without taking the cylinder head off, but you never know. So yes, there's that large, gigantic, weird headed bolt, and that holds. See that? Of course not. It holds this bracket with a ground on it and those little clamps for the wire loom. So now perhaps we can access this last top bolt. So it's the next day. Got to get several clamps off there. Obviously, since we broke this connection, that's going to come out with it. There's a clamp on the back and a couple other ones. So if I try to show you all this, you're just going to see my elbows. So I'm going to try to get those spring clamps off there and get that whole manifold out off camera. So it's finally off. This hose came with it, and this goes to the heater core. I elected to take it off at the heater core very carefully because there was no way I was going to get onto that clamp. Then this is a vacuum hose that runs through here. I guess they want their vacuum preheated. This is a quick connect. You somehow squeeze this and it comes off. I got the front one off. The back tube was split, so it just came off. And then this coolant temperature sensor. This clip should pull out. It should fit back in there. So I'll get all this switched over to the new part and get the side of the block cleaned off when we get this back on. So remember, the round part goes to the bottom. The new one only comes with the O-ring that goes into the block. We'll have to very carefully fish this one out of here. Reuse that. Could put a little grease on here to lubricate it as it goes back in, but it's kind of already oily and wet enough. So like that. Little hair clip just holds it in, I reckon. And I'll pull these clamps off and transfer these hoses back on and try to get that fitting off there. The one on the front, I just kind of squeezed it and pulled off. Yeah, it's pretty much just a rubber connection. So we can pop that back on there. Just lube that up with a little motor oil. Something like that. I'll put a little grease on that O-ring. I've cleaned up as much as I can down there in the block. We'll slip this back in. We get this put back on and try to get the bolts back in it. This does have metal stops in there, so you don't have to worry about crushing the plastic. So let me get this back on. So for the most part, that's hooked back up. You may have remembered you're taking this apart. Snapped off. Well, apparently, VW's part number's on there. It's a 1KO121087H. Punch that in the old Google machine, and it came up as a Dorman number, 902795, available locally. So apparently that's kind of a known problem. So fortunately for us, we have that to replace it with. Just need to go in there and fish out the broken off piece. These pliers are a little bit large for this. Of course, I sort of deformed that clamp too. Let's come on out of there. Kind of as I figured, it's just disintegrating. Let's see if this works. Alright, I think that's all of it. That's a letter I drill bit, but use whatever you have. Form this back into something sort of resembling a hose clamp. Ouch. Goes in there like that. We'll get it all situated, then we'll get that clamp cinched down. I got these hose clamp pliers years ago. I have a straight pair, but one of the pieces fell off, so they're not as effective on smaller ones like this. But basically, you can position your hose clamp in here, and you got some different angles, and it does a pretty decent job of holding on to them. It's not great. We'll start with this bottom hose. I should probably invest in a better pair. They also make cable operated ones. Hook up the sending unit over here, or sensor, whatever it is. Of course, now that that piece is broken, it's not going to want to stay on there. So I'm probably going to have to rig up a tie wrap on there. So some more collateral damage. This vacuum tube runs through this housing up to the brake booster. It was, I don't even know that it was collateral damage. I think it was already split, as hard as that is. Of course, I don't think I have any vacuum tube that big. And if I cut it back, it's going to keep splitting. So I think we'll just wrap this thing in electrical tape, shove her back on there. So that's taped up. That'll work for now. Now if I can remember how the hell it went on here. So I think I have everything back together. Now we'll try the process of refilling all this mess. Well, since as usual, a large portion of my coolant went on the floor, I got this Xerox VW approved G40, I guess, to go with their G12. It said it's compatible for 2005 and up VWs. Doesn't look like it's going to take any more than that. It's always a good idea to look underneath and make sure nothing's pouring out. Nothing yet. It's always a good idea to look at the scene of the crime, make sure nothing's pouring out of there either. It's hard to tell what was new and what was residual, but I think we're probably good. And we just take the car outside normally and let it idle, but we got that going on out there, and I don't really feel like dealing with that right now. So we'll just let it sit here for a while, and it should suck some of that coolant in. Didn't run it long enough to open the thermostat, but sometimes I don't know that that really matters. I also have to put the belly pan back on also and do all that. So I've run this car a few minutes and it's purged out, I think, most of the air. Of course, I'd really like to take it outside and wash off all the extra coolant and make sure I fix the leak, but you know, there's like 6 inches of snow and ice and crap on the ground. So we'll run it here with the door half open for a few minutes. Let it heat cycle a little bit, should suck some more coolant in. And I hope we're good to go. Thanks for watching.